The Hongdian M2 is a compact fountain pen that's primarily made out of aluminum. It's available in a wide variety of colors, and I have this one in what's called space gray. The overall design is largely dominated by this cap, and at the top of the cap we can see a stylized yin-yang with two cats, a black and a white one, circling each other. I reached out to Hongdian to understand why they have cats on this pen, and they told me every pen has a certain theme that they create, and their designers are full of animal lovers. They chose cats to be at the top of this finial because they wanted this pocket-sized fountain pen to feel like a companion. Just below the finial, we have a band that connects to a spring-loaded clip. The clip can be actuated from the top, though it's a little bit challenging to pinch it in the right way. And then it has a swooping design with a flare out at the bottom. That flare out is great. It makes it very easy to go over thin fabrics, as well as grasp onto to extend. And we can see it has a pretty large range of motion, so it should be compatible with most thick notebooks. Just below that cap band, we do see an engraved Hongdian M2, and that's the only branding on the cap. The cap has a slight step down to the barrel, and it comes off in 1 and about a quarter turns to reveal a number 5 size stainless steel nib. There's some nice scroll work. It is colored black, so it's a little bit hard to see. There's an M for medium, and on the back we can see a black plastic feed. The grip section starts with a flare out, and then there's a fairly long taper to threads that are maybe a little bit sharp but aren't uncomfortable in the hand. And then there's a slight step up to the barrel, which is straight to the end finial, which has a slight rounded edge. In the hand, the pen is well balanced and very compact. It's suitable for short notes if you have medium or small hands, but for long writing sessions, you are going to want to post it. And luckily, the cap posts securely and deeply, and it makes for a very comfortable length pen. The center of gravity is just in front of the crook of my hand. And while the grip section is long, I do find the material to be a little bit slick. In terms of size comparisons, here's the Hongdian M2, a typical Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. Before we get into the disassembly of the Hongdian M2, I wanted to take a moment here to compare it with a few other fountain pens. Up top, we have the Sailor Pro Gear Slim, which is marketed as a compact fountain pen, but we can see the M2 is still significantly shorter than that. Just below that, we have the Pilot E95S, which is one of the most popular pocket-sized fountain pens today. This one, like the Sailor, are both made out of resin, whereas the M2 is made out of aluminum. Just below the M2, we have the Kaweco Sport. I have it in brass, but it's available in a variety of other materials. And in its cap form, it's just about the same length as the M2. And just below the Kaweco Sport, I have a Traveler's Company fountain pen, which is the most compact pen on the table today. Of these pens, the Sailor and the Traveler's Company fountain pen have bent metal clips. The Pilot and the M2 both have spring-loaded clips. And the Kaweco Sport does not come with a clip, but you can purchase a bent metal one as an option. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps removed. Overall lengths in their uncapped form are still pretty much the same in proportion. The Traveler's Company fountain pen is by far the shortest pen, and the Sailor is the longest pen. The Sailor, the Hongdian, and the Kaweco all have caps that unscrew. The E95S and the Traveler's Company fountain pen have caps that pull off. Let's take a closer look at these sections and nibs. The first 3 pens here have stainless steel nibs. The Pilot and the Sailor both have 14 karat gold nibs. And all of the nibs on the table, with the exception of the Pilot, are fully exposed. The E95S has an inlaid nib. In terms of the sections, most of them have the same basic shape with a flare out at the top, followed by a tapering profile. The E95S is the exception there, where it has just a tapering profile going nearly to the back of the pen. And then in terms of the section length themselves, the M2 has the longest section, second only to the E95S. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps posted. All caps post securely, and in their posted form, the Kaweco Sport and the M2 are about the same length and are the shortest pens, and the E95S is the longest pen when it's posted. In order to disassemble the M2, no tools are required, but you might find gripping materials are useful to have. The cap unscrews from the barrel. And then if we take a look inside, we can see there is a cap liner towards the bottom, but there isn't an easy way to remove it. So for regular cleaning and maintenance, I would just run this under warm water or soak it with a bit of mild detergent. The barrel can be unscrewed from the grip section. And that's it for the barrel. And then inside we can see the converter that was included with this pen, and that can be pulled right out of the grip section. This converter is really nice to see. It seems high quality with an aluminum sleeve, but it also is a proprietary converter. It may look like it is compatible with an international short cartridge, but unfortunately it's a little bit too wide. The sleeve can be unscrewed from the chamber, and with that sleeve, the piston rod can be removed, and you might have seen this little black piece fall out too. This piece does tend to try to run away, so be careful with it. And then we'll grab the rod and pull it through the back of the chamber. Next, we have the grip section. At the bottom of the grip section, there is an O-ring. That is a pretty robust O-ring. It's not there for sealing purposes. It's there to help secure the threads as you attach the barrel to this grip section. The nib and feed can be unscrewed. And you can see that they are held in place by this nib collar. If you grab your gripping materials, you can give them a little pull and they should be able to come out. And then those can just be separated. And at this point, the pen is fully disassembled. In order to reassemble, let's start with the converter. We're going to take the piston rod and drop it through the back of the chamber. And then we're going to grab this black piece that we saw fall off. We can see that it does have a lip, or the larger side of that lip is supposed to be sitting out. So let me line this up. And there are two fins on the back of the chamber that line up with that black piece. It can take a little bit of finagling. There. We'll then grab our piston knob and the sleeve. The sleeve can be pushed through the front, and then that screws in place over the piston rod. And at this point, the piston is fully functional. Next, let's take a look at the nib and feed. Towards the back of the feed, we do see a lip, which is there to help position the nib. And that just sits just like that. The nib collar does not appear to have a key, so you can just slide this in and push it as far down as you can. At this point, we can put it back into our grip section, and that just screws in place. And then reattach our converter, followed by our barrel. And lastly, our cap. And at this point, the pen is ready to be inked up. Inking up the M2, today I selected Waterman Serenity Blue, which is a nicely saturated blue ink. And I am getting pretty low on this bottle, so I'm going to tip it on one of its facets. Take the cap off the pen, as well as the barrel. Make sure the piston's extended all the way down, and in this case it already is. Submerge the nib into the ink and screw up the piston rod. In order to get a full fill, I'm going to expel the ink and then draw it up one more time. That looks like a good full fill. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the nib and grip section. We'll put the barrel back on the pen, as well as the cap. And we'll cap up our bottle of ink as well. And at this point, we're ready to write. Okay, writing with the Hongdian M2. Cap unscrews, and I am going to post it. And today we have a medium stainless steel nib. And I'm really impressed with this nib. It's smooth, it's wet, it has just a little bit of feedback. I've had maybe 3 or 4 Hongdian pens at this point, and every single one has been very well tuned, and luckily this one is no exception. Our ink is Waterman Serenity Blue. For flex, I'm going to turn the page. With some pressure, you can push out a little bit of line variation, but honestly, it's quite a stiff steel nib. And for reverse writing, actually quite smooth, a little bit more scratchy than the front ways up. And you get a thinner line, but it does get washed out as you get to crossing that T. So in a pinch for a thinner line, you could consider reverse writing, but I wouldn't rely on it. So what do I think of the Hongdian M2? I'm a big fan of this pen. I love the compact nature, and honestly, as I grow my fountain pen collection, I found that I kind of have a sweet spot for pocket pens. I'm very impressed with this nib. As I mentioned, it's extremely well tuned, it's smooth and wet, and that's something that you don't see even on very expensive pens all the time. I think that the clip is an outstanding design. It is a little bit challenging to actuate from the back. Most of the time, though, you can't actuate clips from the back, and you can easily pull it from the front thanks to this flare out. It has a huge range of motion, so you can get it over thick fabrics and notebooks. I love the fact that it's available in many different colors. They did recently release this in a matte black finish, and I'm kind of tempted to pick that one up. And I'm also really impressed that Hongdian not only included a converter with this pen, but went to the trouble of designing one unique enough to fit this body type. That's a very great addition and a huge value add to this pen. But with that being said, I do see areas to improve with this pen, and honestly, the converter is one of those. I love the fact that they created one that fits this body, but I wish that they would have made it so it was compatible with standard international short cartridges, which means if you are out and about with this pen and it runs out of ink, you better have an ink bottle because you can't swap in a cartridge. And then in terms of the materials itself, I think that it is a nicely built pen. It has a good quality finish and has decent texture. But in the hand, for some reason, it does feel quite slippery. I don't know if it's because it is just an aluminum pen. What I wish is maybe Hongdian would consider creating an upscaled version of this model out of stainless steel or brass, like this Kaweco Sport. Brass just gives you a little bit more of a grip. And lastly, for whatever reason, when I cap and uncap this pen, I find that the nib tends to drag across the barrel of this cap. And what that does is it ends up leaving some ink on the cap that transfers onto either the body or the grip section. And you can see maybe a few remnants of that. I tried to clean up this pen before the review. Yeah, there's a little bit right there. So I don't know exactly why that is. I have other pocket pens that have unscrew caps, but for whatever reason, it does seem to collect ink in this cap. But overall, I am very impressed with this pen. I find that it's an extremely affordable and great value. It's an approachable pen with its compact nature and size. And if you're planning a short trip, this is an excellent pen to bring. For longer trips, I would recommend grabbing an ink bottle just to be on the safe side. And if you are a fan of cats, this one also has that beautiful end finial that has those stylized cats, which is cute, but also maybe not overly flamboyant. So I'm a big fan of this pen. I think it is a good companion pen and one that I'm happy to have in my collection. And that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.